our next topic, which, can be controversial or not, but that is the announcement of Mr. Taylor Marshall, who is going to be running for the presidency of the United States. He even had an announcement. So let's take a look at said announcement.
On the Christ the King platform. Do I expect to win? I can't answer that question, but I think we need a candidate who comes out and says abortion should be illegal, no-fault divorce should be illegal, contraception should be illegal. We need a Christian culture in America. We don't need secularism. We don't need strict separation of church and state. We need a candidate who's going to say that. No one on the Republican GOP ticket's ever going to say that. So I'm going to run and I'm going to say all those things, and we'll see what happens. MA Patriot says, you've got my vote, Dr. Marshall. All right, I already got one vote. I'd vote for you, and I'm LCMS, Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod. When I'm running on a Catholic platform and I got a strict Missouri Synod Lutheran voting for me, that's legit. Here's another vote coming in. Got another vote from Brendan. I got another vote for Joe. I mean, I've got at least 10 votes in America right now.
One God, world without end. Amen.
Tay 24, John.
Oh boy. So here's the thing I'll focus on, because I'm a words guy. I'm a nitpicker about words. All right, we need a culture, right? Where does the word come from? Colere. I cultivate. Okay, I make stuff grow. I care for it. I'm sorry, but I don't want to rehash something that Steve has covered thoroughly for us, but you can't do that on a federal level for 330 million people. That's not how it works. You grow a culture, cultures. I mean, just think about cultures, even that you're using as far as like bioactivity. That is as local as it gets, right? Now, look, I'm not saying to the opposite extreme, just work only on you and your household and maybe your neighborhood, and that's it. I'm not saying that's all you have to look at, but I tell you what, convert your neighbors within, unless you live in Texas and you're out in the middle of nowhere somewhere in Montana. Montana's probably a better example. And your closest neighbor is not for 80 miles, okay, maybe 40 miles if you're lucky. Focus on converting your neighborhood. And when you at least get your neighborhood on board with those issues that Marshall was talking about, then you can talk about maybe a local culture. Then maybe you can move on to a county culture, in most states of the union. Then maybe, I don't know, various divisions in states and eventually a state culture, But I mean, come on, guys. Rhode Island's the smallest state in the union. Rhode Island doesn't really have a state culture, okay? Lovely place. Goodness, I wish I could live in Rhode Island. I love being so close to the water, a lot of beautiful architecture and stuff, but it doesn't have a state culture. Nope. And it's the smallest state in the union. So, I think he's got some nice ideas floating around up there that are not as clear as he thinks they are, or not as actionable in the way that he thinks they are. So that's just my frustration. I mean, using these words that encourage people, an American Catholic culture, but that's not how culture works. It's the times when Catholic culture, you can look at this from a historical standpoint. I'm not a professional historian, go ask one. The times that folks have tried to impose a certain sort of culture from the top down have almost always preceded a really dangerous backlash and just things. So, not to say it's impossible. There are a few instances historically when it seems to have gone pretty well, but usually it's a disaster. And I don't think it's been successful anywhere with 330 million people for the good. For the bad, yes, it's much easier to float downward. But for the good, to push people up, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. If somebody can think of an example, I'd love to be proven wrong. And hey, I'll go try to raise some money for Tate Day.
Yeah, that's a great point. Flaz, your thought on as you and Anthony on your best friend special, who had a better best friend last night on Avoiding Babylon. Great episode, by the way. You made the point that Taylor Marshall is probably the most influential man on Catholic media right now, at least in Catholic YouTube. Is it a step from being that to going to politics?
I think I'm frozen.
No, you're good.
We're good.
We see you. Hi.
You hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear
sir.
me? Sorry about that. I don't know what
No,
happened.
you're good, mate.
No, I do agree with a lot with what Jonathan said, and I think and listen, I think Taylor Marshall means well in most of the stuff that he does. He does have a good heart, and I've seen that firsthand. And he is very influential insofar as the Catholic sphere and try to get people into the TLM and live a virtuous life as best as he can. He's always said, "I'm just a father with a webcam and an armchair," and pretty much that's how he started his podcast. I would say, um, I think he would make more noise and more of an impact if he ran and won the governorship of Texas, for example, and then seceded. That would make more sense because then you could kind of inspire uh, other governors who have the idea but don't have the guts to do it. Marshall has nothing to lose, and then he could make Texas a Catholic state, and then if the fruit grow out of that, then you could get more states to do what they're supposed to do and secede and like Steve's been saying, become its own country because what it is, it has its own state laws, as a state constitution, a House of Representatives. So I think in that way he'd be more successful and more impactful than going straight to DC with no experience whatsoever. If a miracle happens and he ends up winning, which I don't think is going to happen. But let's say you get there. I mean, the Schumers of the world are just going to eat you alive at this point. They have so much experience, so much power, so much pull. I mean, Trump, who, was never a politician, he is now, got in there, tried to pass a tax cut, failed, learned the game quickly, and then he adjusted and then got the second, the second bill passed for tax cuts. So getting in there with not much experience, no experience, it's going to be tough. You're going to be eaten alive. Now, where I do think that Marshall has a point here, where I think that it could work for his favor. Now, number one, I don't like seeing all of the traditional Catholics coming on Twitter talking about, I'm going to be in this cabinet. I'm going to be. Number one, when you're saying that, you're not taking him serious. You're making it as a joke, and you're telling everybody what you actually think of it. Without saying it. Number two, the good thing about what he's doing is the same thing that I think that DeSantis is doing. What's the Indian guy's name? Is it Vivek?
Yeah.
It's something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. What I think
We'll give you
he's
that.
doing, what he's doing, what Ron Paul did for Trump, for example, what Ron Paul, the grassroots that he started. Sometimes you need somebody out there to kind of shake the political system, to kind of get people to think like, people thinking, listen, I'm never going to vote because I don't think any of these guys are moral, right? But then you get somebody like Marshall, who could maybe, if he has the right campaign, you get maybe Steve Bannon behind him, Jack Posobiec, some of his friends, Chris, Kirk, Charlie Kirk, whatever his name is. You get these guys to kind of, in a way, endorse him and his ideas, and then he starts getting maybe 3 to 5 million Catholics across the country are saying, you know what, I like his message. Now we have leverage. We have something to bring to the table. Even if Trump is a nominee, we can say, hey, you want these 3 million voters? We got to start compromising. We got to start changing some of your moderate ways if you want our voters. So in a way, he can create some leverage to get in there. They're not going to solve anything because it's DC. But as me in my conscience, if I really want to vote for somebody, as a president, which is my duty to do, my conscience doesn't take. I can't vote for Trump. Like in my conscience, I don't think, the guy's. His personal life is horrible. I think some of his policies were not great. Him attacking DeSantis on the 6-week bill. It's like, how can I vote for someone like that? Obviously, I can't vote for him. I can't vote for Biden. But if we clean some of these things and we had a clear Catholic message and we had leverage to compromise, we can get somebody in there that could do a good job. But I personally think him running for the governor of Texas, and he's got a better chance of winning that, because there's a lot of, the Diocese of Texas is pretty large. You can get some pretty good Catholics coming out there for you. If he could win that, he could secede and then give power to Texas, and that would make a political explosion. And next thing you know, other governors are saying, if he did it, I'm going to do it. And Cameron just won the nomination for Kentucky, and who was going after with Kraft. And Cameron's not great because he's a McConnell boy, but we got Bashir right now. So I'll take Cameron over Bashir. So, and I think John was right. So that's all I got. Can't hear you, bud.
Yep, I'm muted. I know. I was just checking to make sure you all were paying attention. You're welcome, Anthony, for the shout out of your best friend special. But yeah, Steve, your idea with all of this, because I think Fawaz actually put it together very succinctly on all of that. So I'm sure you can just piggyback on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, like I said, if you heard me before, I don't vote federally because it's worthless. And we know this from the last couple of votes. What happened in 2020? And if we don't think that it didn't happen in 2020, 2016 was the first pure election in the history of elections, then you're smoking something and passed me the hookah pipe. But yeah, local is the way to go. And if he had a good, but let's pretend I'm for a federal issue. All right, Taylor, this would be something. How about you could get the atheists tomorrow? And we're talking about the secular guys that want limited government by using a Ron Paul stance in the sense of limited government in what the Constitution says. Mike Church had a great a little segment on this. He goes, he goes, here's my advice for him without them asking for it. Take that pocket Constitution, no Article 2, and get rid of veto all the unconstitutional things that are going on right now. Get rid of all the alphabet soup groups like that, which is in the power of the executive. And you ran on that campaign, you get more than just Catholics. You'll get mostly people that aren't Catholic involved in it that want that stuff. When I ran back in 2010, I was getting people from all over wanting to vote for me, but I was just in the city of Columbia and a little sliver of it. Why? Because I was talking about breaking away. And everybody and their brother wants that outside of the big cities. So yeah, when Faraz brings up the whole Texas thing, you bring up a Texas and have a standoff with our alliance, like making Texas independent, you immediately get the Texas independence movement on your side, and they've been kicking butt the last few years. And on top of that, if you start talking about these kind of ideas that people are wanting, you can do that just like DeSantis at the state level. You can't do none of that stuff. Great that you want to ban contraception. Great, all for it. There's guys in Arizona want to do that at Arizona level. Rick Santorum talked about doing that when he was running back in 16 years ago. There's been guys that have been talking about this for years, and they haven't been able to get it through. One reason, Big Pharma runs DC, as RFK Jr. has talked about on episodes like with Cheryl Atkinson. He mentions how they are basically in charge of that. If you go against one of their baby pills, they get somebody on the street meeting you like, hey, you want to go swim with the fishies? It's at that level there. You're not getting thin if you're going to be against those guys. Like I said, Trump got in because he was supposed to get in. That was no thing about people voted him. That was an illusion. People now think, hey, my vote matters. It doesn't matter. Go back to The Rock. It doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter at all. And you could have all these guys running. They're going to have Trump versus Biden at the end of it. Book it. I'll put the car up for it. It's going to happen. And yes, hey, is it good that someone's doing something? Yes, great. I tell people all the time, you got to do something. This is kind of one of those like, all right, pump the brakes a little bit. You're going a little too far on it. Get back into here. Start local. Start in mayor. Run for a Congress. Run for a state house. Abbott's supposed to be. You guys say Abbott's a Catholic down there in Texas. Run for Abbott's seat. That'd be great. You could do. I mean, I don't think Schwarzenegger had any CV for politics when he ran in California and became governor, but. You're not going to go from podcaster to president. That's not happening. But if you tune the message to what resonates, Not saying sell out. That's not selling out. If you're running for a position, you got to run for the position. So what does Article 2 of the president say? You pick those things and you hip on those. You'll have everyone that says, I follow the Constitution. I follow the Constitution on your side. You can say Christ the King, all that. Great. You're not going to be a Gabriel Garcia Moreno. Why? Let's look at locally on this. We'll bring up, I'm a Garcia Moreno fan. That's great. Where is it at? I have it. That's the size of Ecuador in the United States of America. Now, Garcia was able to get in there, kick the Protestants out, kick the heretics out in the wars. So they got rid of the debt in the wars, brought people back, built the roads, all that. Leo said he was the epitome of a Catholic government. Yes, model yourself over that. But anybody, call me crazy, is Ecuador the size of the continental United States of America? No, it's smaller in Texas. So you have to think about it. You can't just be, I'm going to run the entire third of the continent because of my dictator. Again, call yourself an elected monarch. Say you want to be dictator, whatever. But even in the republics that we love and cheer for and all that, they're not the landmass that we say, oh, America is the biggest. We're Americans. What is America? I'm a South Carolinian. I love it. I'm in a foreign land in North Carolina. I'm in a different country. I saw somebody said they can't run for VP because they're not American. Garcia Moreno called Ecuador America. Technically, you're in America if you're in Canada. You're American. You're just in Canada of North America. The United States doesn't have a trademark on American. You have to be in the United States to be American. It's one of these things no one thinks about. The Pledge of Allegiance, one God, one nation under God. That's baloney. That's written by a socialist, by the way. So if you love that, congrats. You at least love some socialist propaganda. You've been sold on it for a while. We're not one nation. And if you want under God, great. You can consecrate the state to the Sacred Heart like Garcia did and do it effectively and do well with it and have the bishop of that state with you. Probably depends on the bishop, obviously. But that's how you win. You win by getting the little ones and bring together. You get one win here, one victory here, one victory here, one victory here. All of a sudden, we take over the land. Now, if you just don't write it off and just win magically, whimsical out, and then you got to be vigilant every year. Not as the number one thing. Politics ain't the number one thing. It's part of the program. But if you have good men, and Taylor does New St. Thomas Institute, which is great. I've been on that since it started. And other things like this, education is key. And education with my Sons of Fidelium, New St. Thomas Institute, and other guys, helping out, educating the people. People are getting smarter and more lively into faith and things like that. They eventually run for office. Just like Carlin said, these guys just don't come out of a wormhole. They come from our neighborhoods, our lands. We convert our people, our neighborhoods, our neighbors, our citizens around us. People are friends, families, things like that, which salvation is the ultimate thing. Those guys eventually run. Somebody runs for something, dog catcher, school district, whatever. So you got like-minded people in all these specific areas in government. That's how you win.
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. You can't really say much more besides that. And honestly, yeah, we poke a little bit at Taylor, but the guy, if he's thinking about it, then
you're gonna get poked a lot more.
He's coming from a good place,
Well, if anybody thinks we're poking, he's gonna get poked worse if this is legit. He's gonna get on the debate fields and things like that.
I will throw out that it could be like a lot of people do, and this is not a bad thing, by the way. A lot of people say I'm running for president, and they run for a couple months. They go on some shows, they promote who they are, they promote their quote unquote brand. Once again, I'm not slighting, this could be a thing. And if it raises Taylor's profile, if it gets more people to watch his show, maybe on YouTube, maybe he brings more people in that way. There could be a way to, maybe they buy his books, maybe they buy Infiltration. Maybe he gets the attention of lukewarm Catholics and then he brings them back. How many of us have talked about watching Taylor's stuff here and there, and it along with Sensus Fidelium and all these other things, and it helps change our attitude towards it. If he's using it to raise his profile to spread the message of the good, true, and beautiful, then I don't think any of us can say it's a bad thing. that, you know, he's doing it. You know, politicians do it to sell books. Politicians literally do it to sell books and get on CNN as former presidential candidates. So if Taylor wants to do it to raise his profile so he can, you know, sell books on the Catholic Church and bring people awareness to that, and so people go to his channel and then they get into, once they go down the Marshall rabbit hole, it extends all into Catholic YouTube, and eventually 4 years later they're watching Avoiding Babylon.
But it's a
But
free world, so it's a free world. Anybody can sign up. You just got to raise $5,000 in 15 days to get the nomination secure on that. So you can do it. It's all as long as your own money. You can do whatever heck you want with it.
That's right. I mean, if he really wants to do it, I have no issue with it. I have no issue with it, and I think it's going to be something that he's going to need to do, and fine, like absolutely great for him in that regard. So I don't think it's a bad thing, and he gets a little bit of a pop. So good for him. All right, looks like we went through all our topics here, so it might be time for the cry room, John.